Okay. Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 45 of the Building the Village podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Brandon W. Jones, your chief village building strategist. And I'm cutting straight to the point today. No music, no opening song. You're barely going to get a thumbnail opener at the beginning of this from me because I'm on the road and I'm in the hotel room trying to get this content out to you all because I'm excited because this is a very important conversation that we got to have. One thing I will say is if you're new to the Building the Village family, welcome. If you like what you hear or see, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this from, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Spotify, or whether it's Apple Podcasts. All right. So let's jump in. Today, I want to talk about overcoming disappointment. Um, this is something that's going to be happening a lot because right now in my field, in the field of education, students are getting a lot of mail from universities, especially students who are trying to go to college or get their master's degree or go to grad school and get their PhD or get admitted to law school, medical school, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of disappointment because some students, they get into their school of choice. Some students are getting into the institutions that they wanted, and there's a lot of excitement and jubilation. And then there's those students like myself many, many years ago who were getting rapid fire rejection letters from one job or another, or from one institution or another, from one organization or another. And sometimes we get rejected in relationships too. We break up. We find out that the person that we're dating or interested in is no longer interested in us, or this relationship is no longer suiting us. And so as a result, we end up being disappointed. Now, there's a couple questions that I want us to answer before we deep dive into how to navigate and overcome and deal with disappointment. But one of the questions I want to ask you is number one, how do you react? Let's do some reflection. How do you react when things don't go your way? How do you react when things don't go your way? Number two, do you react, respond, or reflect? Mm. Do you react? Do you respond? Or do you reflect? And more importantly, I want you to think about this. How do you keep moving forward when setbacks, adversity, or disappointment or frustration are not only ever present, but also just taking over in that moment, right? And so let's start with dealing with this reality, though, as you reflect on these questions. Disappointment, by definition, is sadness or displeasure caused by the non fulfillment of an individual or a person's hopes or expectations. A lot of the times, many of us are disappointed or frustrated simply because our expectations may have been too high, they may have been too unrealistic, or it was just a matter of my expectations were real. It's just the individual, the organization, the group, or whomever or whatever just didn't live up to them. And those things happen. Disappointment is a part of life. It has a reoccurring role. Watch this. If life was a sitcom or is a sitcom, disappointment is one of those characters that has a reoccurring role in it. It's like when Steve Urkel started pulling up on Family Matters, right? It's Cousin Pam on the Cosby Show. It's insert your favorite sitcom and insert that person that they're not on every episode, but the episodes they're in, you know who that person is when they come in. Listen, disappointment plays a reoccurring role in all of our lives because life is unpredictable. And to the person that thinks that life is very predictable, I want to meet you and talk to you because listen, if you got it figured out and settled, I want to know what your secret is. But to the rest of us who are human and not superpowered or enhanced individuals, I want to talk to you all because I don't know about you all, but my life is very nuanced and complicated and unpredictable at times, right? How do we deal with that? Sometimes disappointment occurs because it's the consequences of our choices. Pausing for dramatic effect. Sometimes you're dealing with disappointment because of a choice you made. or because of a choice I made. And sometimes we get so upset and frustrated about the outcome of that decision when, had we done a little bit more research, had we been a little bit more patient, or just the reality, sometimes nothing went wrong. It just didn't go the way we thought. But life can be, we can be dealing with disappointment because of the consequences of our actions. And then more importantly, this is the one that I think most people forget about, but sometimes we deal with disappointment because the outcomes of what we're situated in or what we're dealing with are beyond our control. Now, what creates anxiety in a lot of us, myself included, is because we are trying to control things we have no control over. I cannot control the weather. Getting here to New Orleans the other day, we had to get held in a holding pattern and then land in a completely different city because the captain needed to refuel the plane. And then we had to wait another hour, and then we were back in New Orleans in no time. But the truth of the matter is, those were circumstances beyond our control. The captain couldn't control the weather. Um, he couldn't create an opening to land the plane safely the first time. And that's okay. Were people disappointed? Yes. Were we frustrated? Sure. But we need to deal with the reality of disappointment. Now, the second thing we need to do is there's some questions that we have to ask ourselves. One of the questions that I would challenge all of you who are watching and listening to this episode, I would challenge you to do a couple of things. I want you to shift your focus from how do I avoid disappointment, because we've already established that it's unavoidable, right? Instead of focusing on how do I avoid disappointment, I want us to shift our focus to how do I deal with disappointment. Those are two very different things. If I focus so much on how to avoid disappointment, I'm going to end up disappointed. Why? Because you can't avoid it. It's right there. Instead, if I focus on how do I deal with it, I'm being solution oriented, and I'm less likely to be the anxiety goes down because I'm focusing on practical solutions, right? And so, some questions to ask, and I want you to write these down if you're writing or taking notes in your notes app, because readers are leaders, and writers, I don't got nothing wrong with that. People who write notes just do better. All right. So write your notes down. But one question I'd ask you is, how can I keep moving forward? Despite what's going on, despite the circumstances that are happening to me, how do I keep moving forward? The second one is, how do I keep, or how do I prevent disappointment from keeping me down? I can't control the stimulus. I can't always control the stimulus, but I can control my response to it. That's the one thing I have control over. And so I would challenge all of you to think about, well, wait a second. How do I prevent myself from letting disappointment keep me down? Right? It's gonna happen. And so how do I prepare for it? Or how do I, as Rocky Balboa said, get hit and keep moving forward? One of my favorite clips from the Rocky Balboa movie, I think this was the sixth Rocky movie. Where he's on the street talking to his son Adrian, and he talks about, you're dealing with the disappointment. His son was saying it's hard to live in his shadow, and his son was saying he can't get a job because only time he gets jobs is people who based on his last name. And so Rocky goes into this incredible monologue in which I hope you all check out that clip from Rocky Balboa. But Rocky says, man, he's just talking about how life works. He gives them a good lesson on how to deal with disappointment, and he says it's all about how you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that's what disappointment does. Disappointment keeps us from wanting to move forward. It anchors us down. It weighs us down, and it creates just these incredible challenges that we might struggle to overcome. And so I'd encourage you to think about, how do you take those hits that life throws at you? What is your go-to village technique, right? Who's that person in the village that you go to pray or get elevated or uplifted when life is getting difficult? Now, I also want to add these last points before I close this out. And that's, I want to give you all three steps, three key steps for overcoming and dealing with disappointment so that you can get hit but not get held down. All right. Here's the first thing, and this ties into everything we've already been saying, but it's the first thing is you got to accept it. Accept the fact that this is what happened. I got dumped. I got fired. And it's not minimizing the impact of these things. And I'm not saying that you're weak if you cry or have a moment of emotion simply because you're dealing with this adversity. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that we have to acknowledge the reality of the disappointing thing instead of suppressing it. Because here's the thing, when we try to suppress it, we end up making things more difficult for ourselves. And I don't know about you all, but when I suppress things, I get overwhelmed. My stress levels go up, my blood pressure goes up, and now my body is keeping score. And then we're more susceptible to illnesses and sickness. We're more susceptible to panic attacks. And we ain't got time for that, right? And so we have to accept whatever it is. We got to accept it. Now, if there's things that I can do to change those circumstances, or if there's things that you can do to alter, enhance, or modify those circumstances, by all means do so. But here's the reality. We're all not going to be in that situation. We're all not always going to be able to do that. And so process your emotions in a healthy way instead of ignoring them. The village lesson I would throw into that is we need people around us. Surround yourself with people who allow you to feel but not dwell. I'm going to say that again. In the village, we need people who will allow us to have our real, authentic, and true feelings, but not allow us to dwell in the nonsense and the mess. Y'all feel that? Those are the kind of folks that we need. Not only do we need to accept it, but the second thing is we need to assess it. I'm using my preaching alliterations today. Not only do we have to accept it, but we have to assess it, meaning take a step back and evaluate the situation. What what is it about this situation that was actually in my control? That's the first question. Was this in my control? Number two, what lessons can be learned? That's how you assess it. See, a lot of the times we damage and trauma, not just trauma, but disappointment lingers for a lot of us is because we didn't learn from it. Jonathan Sprinkles, one of my favorite speakers, he once said, the lesson repeats until the lesson is learned. The lesson repeats until the lesson is learned. Listen, if you don't take a step back in the middle of that trial or that tribulation or that circumstance where I'm disappointed, if I don't take time to reflect on it and learn from it, I'm in danger of making the same mistake again, thus dealing with this cycle, this endless cycle of disappointment in my life. So, question one is, was it in my control? And number two, what lessons can be learned? The village lesson, I'm throwing these in here at y'all now. The village lesson is wise counsel. Wise counsel can help us see the bigger picture. Who is your wise counsel? Who is on that presidential cabinet of yours? Who's in your village that can provide wise counsel? I'm not talking about people who are going to go along to get along. I'm not talking about the yes man. You don't need that. And I'm not talking about the people who you don't allow to hold you accountable. I'm talking about those people who can keep it real and honest with you so that you can progress and move forward. Here's the last and final thing. Not only do you have to accept it and assess it, but you also have to apply it. Use what you've learned to grow and move forward. Use what you've learned to grow and move forward. What is it about this disappointing situation, whether it be a relationship, a job, my finances, travel arrangements, whatever the circumstance may be that led to you feeling disappointed or operating in this perpetual state of disappointment? How will you use this experience to shape your future responses? Notice I keep using that word response because when we react, it's often out of anger and frustration, and reaction is very defensive. We don't want to always be defensive in our posture. So, how will I use what I've learned to grow and move forward? So, how will this experience shape my future responses? I'm going to be disappointed again. We've already accepted that. In my assessment, I've already recognized that I tend to get disappointed in these types of situations. We all need to do a good job of memorizing or remembering or cataloging those things that easily disappoint us and work towards not being so easily disappointed. Because if we're so easily disappointed, that's going to minimize the number of people that want to be in our village because we don't handle disappointment well. We don't, as one of my friends says, suffer well. And so we have to ask, how will this experience shape future responses? And how can we help others? This is the second one. How can we help others navigate similar situations? Friends, you're not going through this season of disappointment for no reason. Tim Ross said it like this: nothing is wasted. And he's talking about when it comes to God, nothing is wasted. I want to put that in here too. None of this is wasted. None of these experiences that we've gone through is wasted. You went through it, you overcame it. How do you help other corporations avoid those mistakes? How do you help other students? How do you help other athletes? How do you help other clients? How do you help other family members? Shoot, how do you help yourself keep from making that same mistake? That's what we need more of in the village. We need people that will be with us to help us accept the disappointments that we've dealt with, to assess them so that we can learn from them, and then apply the lessons that were learned. All right. So, listen, I want to encourage you all to continue accepting, assessing, and applying. But also, I want you to make sure you share this with at least 3 to 5 people. Because here's what I know: we're better together in our communities when we can challenge each other for the better. We're better in our respective communities and villages when we can challenge each other for the better, when we have learned to accept disappointment as a part of life, but it doesn't have to hold us down, when we can assess our circumstances and our situations, and more importantly, we can apply what we're learning. Listen, if you got something from this episode, I want you to like the episode on YouTube, comment on it, share it. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this at, because this is the kind of content we want out there in the village. This is the kind of content we want out there helping to shape and change the world. And so until we talk together again, peace, take care of yourselves and each other. Y'all have a good one.